Welcome to the MindSolve podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan, and the topic of today's episode is Who Do I Belong to? The Pursuit of Self-Actualization. This is a special episode because we're getting an opportunity to speak with the author of this book, Who Do I Belong to? Tarvela Razi, who is a multi-talented artist in music, production, writing, performance, a writer, an author, a poet, and brings a breadth and depth of capabilities that go beyond how I can define him. So I'm going to give my guest today, Tarvela Razi, an opportunity to share with our listeners a little bit about his background and professional expertise before we get into our interview discussion. So with that, Tarvela, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah, as I call you JB. I appreciate MindSolve. I appreciate the program, and I appreciate the listeners for taking the time to listen and to engage with us today. So I appreciate that. As far as who do I belong to, it's a book that I just released on 11/11/24. It's a very important project for me. It's a project that also includes a soundtrack, a Who Do I Belong To soundtrack, some other elements as well. One of the great goals of the project is to create community and to try to bring in and bring forth a change for people. In the book, when they were asking what ages that the book is appropriate for, I kind of had a pause for a second because the book starts for me from infancy, perhaps even before that. But for the people who read the book, I can say 13 to 18 or 10 to 18, as I said on one of them. But really, you can be 10 to 18 and be 94 now, because who I'm speaking to is not just a child. I'm speaking to your inner child as well. The purpose of this book that I found to be important is something that I happened to experience, not only from myself, but also through my mother. As the book states, is who do I belong to? Writing a book with my mom from beyond. Initially, it wasn't I who wanted to write the book. I wanted my mother to write the book after her life experiences because I found it to be something that could be beneficial for women and for children who may have encountered what she encountered. See, in life, you're always an example. Sometimes you're an example of what to do. Sometimes you are an example of what not to do. And I think that we live this life unselfishly. We're all part of a collective. So we learn these lessons as we go throughout our journey. For me, it was imperative for her to share that. And finally, after pestering her for quite some time, she agreed. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to to live up to her end of the bargain and the deal because she passed away. And so as a result of her dying, then now I was tasked with not only telling and sharing my own story, some of her story as well. So it was imperative for me to dig deep. It's not a book that I wanted to write. It's not a book that I sought out and was like, oh man, let me talk about all of these things that I've experienced and stuff that I went through. I am not an oh, woe is me person. I am a it's Monday person. Whatever happened on Sunday, it's fine. These are just experiences that lead me to another chapter. No pun intended with the book, but they do. These are just the chapters of our lives. But having to share someone else's chapter of their lives and being raised in a family or in a community where you don't really let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. But we never take a moment to figure out why. Well, why wouldn't I let my left hand know what my right hand is doing? Are they not friends? Are they not in unison? Well, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's your subconscious and your conscious, and you have to find balance within yourself. And you have to study yourself. You have to be able to deal with yourself and figure out what your trajectory is going to be. And that's not always easy. And so even though we all sometimes live in secrecy, the truth is, it's on film. It's what I say, we live in a spiritual and a physical world simultaneously. You have to develop the ability to zoom out, take the satellite view of life, as I mentioned quite often in the book, to see what you're seeing. At some point, you have to get on Spike Lee's sidewalk. See, in a movie, Spike Lee sometimes will have people walking on the sidewalk. they wouldn't be moving. See, life is going on. You're in it. Lights, camera, action. It has already begun. So you're on Spike Lee's sidewalk. So sometimes you have to zoom out to see what you're seeing. You're in motion. You're in control, but you're in motion. So that's what I wanted to accomplish with the book. The key thing is about self-actualization. Maslow's theory of self-actualization, and if it's the height of his whole theory, which I find to be fascinating because some people think should switch it around of all your needs. Maybe that's the first thing that you should do. That part is debatable, a healthy debate. But for having self-actualization for me wasn't anything that I intended to do. This is something that I did out of necessity, because without it, I wouldn't be here today, at least not as present.
Wow. I'm inspired by your words, Tarvella, and also I can say that I've already had the opportunity to read the entire book, and it
Thank you.
has fulfilled me in a way that words cannot express enough. Uh, as we get into the discussion of questions, I wanted to make sure that our listeners know that Who Do I Belong to? The book did, in fact, release on November 11th. It's available. You can purchase it from Tarvella's website, which we'll get into a little later, on Amazon. It's a little over 300 pages, and it's beautifully written. It's really heart catching in terms of pausing you to think about some of the things you just said, right? That life is happening in a way that is powerful and you have to zoom out. I love that point. You also mentioned the inner child and who this book is written for. And again, as a reader of the book already, I found that it speaks to many audiences. And so I hope that as people get the opportunity to read the book and experience it for themselves and listen to the soundtrack, the music that also reinforces the messages that you give that are so provocative and potent are going to be well received by those who get the benefit of seeing what you've created here. So I want to tap into the next question I have for you. You talk about self-actualization throughout the book, and you just spoke to it now. And we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which gives that as the top of the pyramid, as the final stage of development, of human development from his concept. And then you have the dictionary, or the defined term is that to fully realize one's full potential. And so I'm curious to have you share with our listeners, what were the sources of energy that were helpful to you in your journey? Because your journey is a very unique experience overall.
As far as the sources of energy, the number one source of energy is the Most High. And because God is completely plugged into us, regardless of our religions, regardless of our belief, it doesn't really matter to me what you name the creator. For me, I say something like, we are creative because we were created by the creator. These things are plugged in. When you leave home, the TV is still plugged in. The source is still flowing. Me, personally, I am a faucet. I view myself as a faucet. There was one time I was in downtown LA, and there was I was helping to feed the unhoused. And this gentleman, after a while, he came up to me as we were all in a circle, and he said to me, so what do you do? I was like, what do you mean? He was like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? I said, oh, I do like clinical research. I'm always doing so many things, but for financial gain, one of the greatest is clinical research. And so I do clinical research. And he was like, I don't understand. I said, oh, clinical research. I do it from the scientific perspective. More clinical trials, mostly glioblastoma, things of that nature. And he says, it still doesn't make sense. And I said, well, imagine all the drugs that are in a pharmacy. A lot of them have to go through a clinical trial in order for them to have FDA approval or whatever it is. And he said, no, I understand what you're saying. He says, but I've been out here for a long time. He says, no one has ever came out here and spoke to us in the way that you speak to us. Because see, my mission wasn't to tell them you got to come to church, you got to do blah, 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 or you need to take a photo op and look at me on my good side. I can't remember which one is my good side, but you need to do that. and I don't need any of that. It's where I learned how to deflect praise. See, a lot of people say they believe in God, But a lot of times I think they are God. They want to help you. They want to assist you, but they want to assist you with a follow-up. Or they want to assist you with like, look what I did to these little blah, blah, blahs. It's okay. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but it's not why I am. So he expressed to me, no one's ever has never come to us in this way. So what are you doing with this? And it gave me pause. Yeah, what am I doing with this? I speak to people. I have my own random acts of kindness. I have my own organization, Deflect Praise. I pay for people's food in the grocery store. I never let them say thank you. The reason is because I'm not the source. I don't want them giving me props. I'm too flawed as a human being for anybody to give me props for anything. So I need to be in a way for them to understand that maybe the universe or God is seeing you directly. I may be here at this exact moment for a reason. And if I can give you a little hope, it's what my mom used to write to me. Hold on to the rope of hope. I didn't even understand it when she wrote it from prison. But she was saying, hold on to the rope of hope. I didn't really grasp that until much later. But when I talked to this unhoused man and the people surrounding him, and he found something that I said to be inspirational, reminded me of Malcolm. I think he said something like, everything I do good is God. Everything I do that's not good is because I didn't listen. It's not as if God hasn't prepared us for these things. It's just that we're not always attentive or we're fearful. I have great people, great friends who are not necessarily ready to become what God designed them to be. As I said in the book, Lupe Fiasco said, did you improve on the design? Did you do something new? So wait, what does that mean? So I'm designed in a way. What do I do with this? Why do I have this? Surely this isn't just to have a gift of gab or for something nefarious like being a Mac or something of that nature. Maybe it's for another reason. Maybe in this small amount of time that I'm here on this earth, I can do something that inspires another or that will allow them to navigate to whatever it is that they desire to be. Because again, this is a 4x4. This isn't a 100 race. It's a 4x4. My job is to pass the baton to who? Not even just my own children, to whoever is willing to listen. Because I was inspired by people who didn't even know they were inspiring me. Well, now it's my turn. That's the energy. That's literally what's fueling this whole thing.
So I'm connecting a lot of gems you just said. You said a lot that was important here. You talked about the creator and using you. Creation is part of the purposefulness of the energy that you channel to people, right? And recognizing that your gift that you provide to others is not one that you're looking to gain credit or praise for. It's something that you do with a very intentionality behind it and instilling hope into others. I love that quote, hold on to the rope of hope that your mother bestowed upon you, and you really let that resonate. Passing the baton. These are all the things. So I want to do a quick follow-up question to this before I go into the next topic and ask you, as you think about that right now and you sit here in this moment, and the Tarvella version of you, that's the child that you speak of in your book, you know, what was that like for him as a child to get to the man and the person you are today, to really come to that very lofty understanding that your creation is a vessel to pass on to others? What was that like?
It's not really lofty from my perspective. I go into the store. If I don't have something to offer, I'm stealing. The light is the store that provided me with hope. If I don't offer something back, I have stolen. So it's not, for me, a lofty goal necessarily. It's a necessity. This is something that I'm striving to ensure that builds community. There's literally going to be somebody listening to this, whether it be child or adult, who's going through something that they can't necessarily or are not necessarily ready to broadcast, nor do you have to.
Mm,
That's the point. You don't need to. You don't need to be put on blast to need help.
mm,
So, because life helped me and because people inspired me without knowing that they were inspirational, who am I
mhm,
not to do that? I have to pay. It's like having one of those free little, and sometimes they have these little books or donation. It's not even a donation necessarily where they offer something free and they can say, tip if you want to.
yeah. Yeah.
I have to talk to you about tipping. At this stage of life, you've missed everything
Mhm, mm,
because I'm giving back what you gave me. That's not
mm,
necessarily on the menu. You gave me
mm,
your energy. You provided me with a great experience. I was gonna be engaged, or I'm just happy as a celebration. I
mhm,
graduated. I got my
mhm,
degree as yourself. I received my doctorate. Or wherever
mhm,
you went to eat, somebody became a part of this experience.
mm,
They didn't do this intentionally. They didn't wake up that day and be like, man, I'm going to serve Dr. Abdullah today. That would be great. You have your own private
mhm,
chefs. I'm sure you do. But like in some situations, it was different where it was unknown to them, but they're ready and they're prepared. So I tip you because I appreciate
mhm,
you for providing me a good experience. So I am tipping life and tipping others and paying it forward for what
mhm,
was given to me.
mhm.
This is not lofty. This
Yeah.
is the way it should go. This is how you keep it. This is why you continue to give back what you receive. And it doesn't,
Mhm,
this is what I think sometimes that was meant when it said an offer. It wasn't always money. What else do you have to offer? So
mm,
what I can't come to your service because I don't have any money? What if I have to offer the gift of kindness?
mhm,
What if all I have is to offer is the gift of hugs? You know how infrequent we as adults receive hugs?
mm,
You know how important that is? There's at one point I wanted to
mhm,
start a hug business. Unfortunately, we live in a very odd society sometimes where I'm sure it would turn into something else. But
mhm,
sometimes I would just go home just to get a hug. They had
mm,
no idea what they were doing. They had no idea what they hugged different. I needed somebody to miss me.
mm,
I was stealing energy, absorbing
mm,
energy of joy that someone had for me. You know how many of us do not? How many babies are born that don't get that skin to skin?
mhm,
When did it leave? Don't we always
mhm,
need it? And I don't mean just with our partner or wife or husband or whatever it is. I mean, period. Is
mhm,
this not something that we are in need of? Are these not the components to allow us to self actualize, to evolve?
mhm,
So
mhm.
me, I play a very small part. This is the band of life, and I literally only play cymbals. There's nothing. Nobody even
Yeah.
know. They don't even credit me, and I don't need it. I don't need to be on a CD jacket. I'm okay. I'm cool.
I love that. Well, and you talk about the necessity of it. So thank you for clarifying on that. That for you, in fact, it's not lofty. It's really about the service of giving what you know you receive. And you've said multiple times, which I appreciate, is that you've been inspired by others. And so that inspiration has fueled you, has given you energy to your own life force. And I especially appreciate your acknowledgement of the human connection, that is big in how we go about moving forward together as a collective human experience, and having that phenomenological base of understanding that your experiences are not exclusive to others. So that leads me to the next question I have for you, which is a pretty heavy question in my mind. So you might find this light for you to process it, because your book did such a wonderful job of opening some doorways for me to understand you, and a very clear light that um, really helped me get a greater sense of appreciation, not only for your experiences, but how you got through difficulties in life and learned from them and acquired new strengths. So the term trauma, which often gets misused, but I'm going to make sure we have clarification and we use it in the right frame. Trauma is defined as, in part, a behavioral state resulting from some form of severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury or harm to the being, typically by either directly or indirectly uh, being faced with a life-threatening experience. So you outline in your book, Tarvella, severe and several different traumatic experiences that you survived. And so I'd like to have you just share some insights that you could provide to someone who might be listening right now and saying, man, I've gone through so much. I don't know if I can make it. How they might be to relate to your experiences and ways you can really instill hope in them.
Thank you. The Who Do I Belong To first began as a song. We were, one of my great friends and producer, Eddie Gypsy Stokes. We were
Mhm.
with Dr. Dre at the time, Aftermath, and, doing music, striving to live this whole music reality. And there's a guy that he was at the time was like his right hand man, Mike Lynn. And Mike was
Mhm.
talking to me about music and about, writing. I always feel like I'm the best writer. I have
Mhm.
no equal
Mhm.
necessarily. That's my whole
Mhm.
braggadocio feeling as an MC. But I am really an excellent writer from that perspective. But he says, yeah, you overcame these things, but the world doesn't know it. He said music is just a matter of figuring out a part of your personality and showing that to the world. So I was challenged to do that, not just to be lyrical, but to create something that I was more personable about. Because again, never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. The way I'm raised, you don't really tell your business. Family doesn't
Mhm.
expose those things. So I started off and doing this song, Who Do I Belong To? The lyrics were, witness my first crack house while inside of the womb. So vicious, I had to black out, couldn't fight the fumes. My mommy huffed and she puffed and let it swim in the veins. Couldn't escape the taste of evil as I mentioned the name. I was an addict as a newborn. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
for me, I needed to identify with something in music and share with people an experience that I had before I even knew what experiences were from infancy.
Mhm.
As I said, I think in the book where I was given, I was ingesting or digesting heroin before prenatal vitamins.
Mhm.
But I needed to be able to share that. And so I wrote that in that song. And so when we did the song and people were using it more in other countries or were more familiar with it in other countries, someone contacted Gypsy at that
Mhm.
time and said that this had saved their life,
Oh.
that this was a song that gave them inspiration to make it to Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And so we found that to be inspirational. And so I figured for myself, in order to share this with others, then I needed to sacrifice myself. Then I needed to show myself as an example. The way that I think I can get people to speak to me is by being
Mhm.
perfectly imperfect.
Mhm.
Um, I feel you can be forthright with me if I've given you my truth as well. And I'm not trying to take it to like stand on business with you or anything else. So for me, in order to navigate my own pain from that perspective and share with
Mhm.
others, I utilize the creative route of music, of now literature, of film,
Mhm.
TV, all of these other things. Because for me, that matters more than anything else.
That's beautiful. And having that affirmation of someone reaching out to you and saying this was a life-saving message for me, right? That kind of affirmation makes one recognize that the interdependence of the human experience is so powerful, that you're not here alone in your own survival story, your own experiences creates new pathways for others to realize what's possible. So I want to do a follow-up question to that because you answered that wonderfully and helped me gain some perspective on how you got through some of that. of seeing again this connection that you have with people. And I've known you. I have the benefit, without getting off scope, I've had the benefit of knowing you well. So this is not new to me, but it's important that listeners and readers of your book pick up this and understand it so they can benefit from it. Is even though trauma can be contained, and like you said, you were raised with the left hand doesn't know, let the right hand know what's going on. You were vulnerable in this book, and you shared a lot that you've probably carried for all your life. What was it about now? What made now the right time to do this for you?
I heard someone at the door, and it was Father Time. He says,
Mm,
I'm not coming in yet. Just want to let you know I'm around.
mhm,
What other time do I have?
mm,
There's so many people who I love,
mhm,
so many people who I admire. What is the Jay Electronica and Jay-Z had a song where Jay-Z said, I got numbers in my phone that will never ring again.
mhm,
I got numbers in my phone that will never ring again. At some
mhm,
point, mine won't. And
mhm,
hopefully it's not because I didn't pay the bill. It's because time is up.
mhm. Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
okay. It's okay. It's already a warning. And a warning isn't bad. This is you still have an opportunity to play your part. I need
Mhm,
you on cymbals. I know you love the drums, God may say to me. I know you
mhm,
love to sing. You have a beautiful voice. Fine.
mhm,
Maybe not, but yes. Um,
mhm,
but I need you to play your part.
mhm,
So Father Time reminds me,
mhm,
hey, let's get it. It's not a negative. It's a positive.
mhm,
Let's get it. Hey, let's take advantage of this. Do not allow life to throw you off too much. I understand that you're tired. Not an advertisement, but you might need some propel. You might need
mhm,
something to give yourself an energy
mhm,
boost.
mhm,
For me, humans are my electrolytes.
mhm,
These are things that inspire me because I see me in it. I was that young son of no one. Even though I'm biologically, of course, I love my family, but you don't know what it feels like when, I think I said in the book, being a choice.
mhm,
When I was a child, I'm a choice. I don't live with my mother, my father.
mhm,
I live with my great grandparents, who I adore to this day, my dear and granddaddy. But it's still a choice. They just didn't
mhm,
make me feel like it was a choice. They made me
mhm,
feel like I was on like Fantasy Island. They gave me everything. Albeit maybe I was a little bit spoiled. But you know what it means to be spoiled by your great grandparents as opposed to your parents? It's different. I'm talking
mhm,
about the weekend. I'm talking about every day. I'm talking about a woman who used to make ice cream out of the first snowfall. I'm talking about somebody who used to sit with me every morning and prophesied to me and said, I had another one of those dreams. I don't know where you were, but you were a man and you were driving something I had never seen.
mhm,
I don't even know what type of car this was. She would sit down with me and tell me, you're going to do great things. I love her. If she says this, I have to protect this truth. It's why I never smoked or drank a day in my life, ever.
mhm,
The reason is because I could not, before, this is not just saying I'm healthy. I think I said this in the book, like, was I always this? Absolutely not. I've been addicted to oatmeal pies forever. I am like, my longest relationship with a woman has been Little Debbie. We've been together since we were 5. I love her. I ignore her now because she's not good for me. As Marvin said, I had to leave you for my health's sake. But from time to time, I recall. I recall, and I didn't cheat on her. I wasn't down with the
Well, and
hostess.
and and I have to bear witness to that. I have seen that long-term relationship with you and her, so
Yeah,
I
you
can
probably
attest to
helped
that.
that relationship,
Yeah,
but
no,
I
I
digress.
can't take any responsibility for that. I'm just a witness. I'm an innocent witness of it.
Hey, I was happy to have her. Some men, you yourself, you have a beautiful wife. She was my honey bun. I love her. If I ever love a woman like I love Little Debbie, hey, we'll be on our 60th anniversary. Or someone loves me the way Little Debbie is. Yeah, but anyway, my whole point is I was able to be inspired by my great
Mm-hmm.
grandmother who had prophetic dreams about me. Do you know what that
Mm-hmm.
means? For someone who would wake up and say, man, you're going to be so handsome. You're going to be, when I was a kid, when I said in a book, where the women in my family, the younger
Mm-hmm.
women, my aunts and my sister used to tease me as they do, this is just sibling
Mm-hmm.
rivalry or whatever it is. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
head mulati, got more head than you got body. And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to retort to this. It's not my fault that someone gave me a large cabeza. What can I do about that? You know what I'm saying? But it's like you learn these things. But then she was telling me I was going to be handsome.
Mm-hmm.
She's not, she's covering every step
Mm-hmm.
as a great grandmother that I was going to face before I knew it. But I needed to hold on to that rope of hope. When you think
Yeah.
about it, this is cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's tug of war.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a lasso. It's still a rope, and it's still hope, no matter what you're doing with it. But she was inspirational to me from having those prophetic thoughts and dreams. It's not like she was a person who was just saying this just to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But they say, Chuck D says, I don't rhyme. I don't rhyme just for the sake of riddle. I'm telling you
Mm-hmm.
really what I feel. So she really told me that she had those dreams about me, and I still protect it to this day. It's what keeps me up even when the world is heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. And throughout the book, as I was reading it, what you just described, Tarvella, is that constant pouring into you, pouring into you. Your great grandmother, Madeir, I even said to you, I love her after reading the book and understanding the beauty of her love and care and cultivating in you your spirit of belief. She seemed to give you the base of self agency and letting you know right away when you say choice, right, that it didn't come off as a burden. It was a responsibility of love and connection for you. And so as you talk about that throughout the book, and I can, see the voice of it throughout the narrative, my sense is that the readers of your book will also get that, right? They'll get the benefit of that you've given as a gift. And the way you even describe how you live it, right? This is not a book that is just a representation of a chapter, a big chapter of your life. It's also a way of speaking to people about how you go about living your life. You're very mindful of time. As I asked the question, like, why now? And a mindful principle is time is the currency of life, is one of the things that I try to remind my patients and clients and family as well, is that how you invest and spend your time defines you. There's no escaping that. And so you value that, you get that. And that really drove you to this point where you said, now's the time. So that leads me to my next question around the topic of mindfulness, which is to be present in the moment with awareness and acceptance of your thoughts without self-judgment, as if your life depended on it. Trauma is part of it. And the other part of trauma, when you live with it, is the healing. How has your journey of healing helped you be more mindful of the things you do day to day? Because you have a pretty busy lifestyle, business, professional work, your father, you have 3 sons, you have 2 young sons that are pretty active, student athletes. You've got a lot on your plate. I know, just looking from the outside in, I can't imagine how, you know, overwhelming at times that could be. How's your healing helped you go about living and facilitating all these responsibilities and functions in your life today?
Therapy, therapy, therapy. And not
Mm.
just in the popular sense. You have to
Hmm.
have therapy. If you're sitting down with the pastor, that's fine if the pastor is right.
Hmm.
If you're sitting down with an actual therapist, if you go to Dr. Abdullah
Hmm. Hmm.
in order to tap into yourself, I think sometimes people don't understand what therapy is. Therapy
Hmm.
isn't a crystal ball.
Hmm.
This isn't a fortune teller. All this is like, what is it? Chicago has that round ball or whatever it is. I forget the name of it. And is silver or whatever it is, and you can see your
Mhm.
image. That's what therapy is. I need to
Mhm.
help you to see you.
Mhm.
Somewhere where we need to tap into what's hidden. The mind is a trap.
Mhm.
So it can be a trap. So it can corner you. It can put you in a position where you've backed down so much, you're not ready to fight back. It's more this
Mhm.
than this.
Mhm.
And so therapy has helped me uh, tremendously.
Mhm.
Um, Reading has helped me tremendously. But you know what really helped me? Being creative. Being
Mm.
creative is really what allowed me to heal and self
Mhm.
actualize. That's the gist
Mhm.
of it all, as it did my mother. See, simultaneously, we were healing. And she's not
Mm.
just my mother. I don't have a monopoly on her. Uh,
Mhm.
just like Madeir wasn't just my great grandmother. You know, this is kind of like God, not comparing her to God, but
Mhm.
someone who's loved by many from different perspectives. How can you do that? How can this person, there's other people who can tell these stories from a whole different perspective.
Mhm.
It's what I say in the book when I had my after. Like, hey, this is just my perspective of it. But in order to be on a certain level where I'm able to heal creatively by remembering the people who I knew, who I've known, by being inspired by that, by talking to actual therapists
Mhm.
to assist me in order to, again, like that, I forgot the name of that thing in Chicago where you can see your image,
Mhm.
you see yourself by being a mirror. I had a song when I was younger called Mirrors and Mirrors and Razor Blades. Mirrors and
Mhm.
mirrors and razors. Either you love or you hate yourself. Gee, this is like ages ago.
Mhm.
Because that's what it is, right? I can be whatever. I can be, I can think nothing of myself. You can be uncomfortable with me of how I feel about myself. But if you're uncomfortable with me about how I feel about myself, it says more about you.
Mhm.
Because the truth is, I'm just me. See, we all have our own fingerprints. The difference with me is I'm living my fingerprint. That's what makes me unique. That's what I'm confident about. It doesn't matter if yours is greater and better or your line swiggles or does, but I'm not comparing myself to you. If I think God gave it to me, how am I not supposed to be hype about it?
Mhm.
God is greater than Amazon. I know Jeff Bezos or whatever may think he's God because they control, but anyway, I digress. But the thing is, if God delivers me a package of talent and I go to the door and receive it, how am I not supposed to be overjoyed, enthusiastic about this? This is
Mhm.
fantastic. This is the greatest gift I've ever received. Madeira is my Madeira. But if she knew you, she would love you the same. Literally, literally, she would love you the
Mhm.
same. Spirit does already. For her other great grandchildren and children, they knew her longer than I did.
Mhm.
You still have love to offer? That's amazing. So that type of understanding and therapy helps me self actualize with my sons. Um, you know, I'm an old man to them. They think they're cooler than me. At least the younger ones now, they think they're cooler than me.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, I tell them it's practically impossible. Like I've searched the earth for a cooler person, and they just laugh at me. I tell them that I'm 5 minus 4. The mere mentioning it is like, what's 5 minus 4? That means I'm the one. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
told him I learned that from my brother JB because he was like probably the most braggadocious person that I knew as a kid. When we would go places, he would announce our arrival. I'd never experienced that. But as a young kid, I was just quiet. I was great, but I was quiet. When I started doing music, there were other people in our town, who were way more popular, had way
Mhm.
more to brag about because hip hop was all about that flavor. That was it.
Mhm.
Me, I had it too, but I was just quiet, you know? And so with you, you were a person who just had more awareness, more outward confidence, more let
Mhm.
me show you and dominate you. That wasn't who I was.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
learned from it because if you don't show it, just recently my sons now are getting um, offers or
Mhm.
acknowledgement for different schools and able to be
Outstanding.
recruited and, different things like that. It's fantastic. As a parent, it's tough because you got
Mm-hmm.
to go here and there and do all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. But similarly, you have to come out your shell. You have to show your greatness. The world is waiting for
Mm-hmm.
you. Literally, this is how I look at life sometimes. You have literally already won the lottery. When are you going to go pick your check up? You already
Mm-hmm.
won. You shy about picking up your winnings? God already designed you with greatness. When are you going to go and pick up your check?
Hmm.
Because you already won. It's crazy. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, go get
Yeah.
your money. You already have the abilities. But people, a lot of times, that's why I said the book speaks to our inner child too. People
Mm-hmm.
are sometimes already becoming their own worst enemy. You got to break through that. Go
Mm-hmm.
and get your winnings. You've already put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad that you had the opportunity to speak to the importance of therapy because let's face it, there are stigma, roadblocks, and pitfalls that come with, particularly in marginalized communities that have been without access or without resources or relied upon, to your point, more spiritual pathways to get help with the healing journey. And, for obvious reasons, I'm going to be an advocate of everyone getting the benefit of healing, learning and growing and having therapy as part of that process. But you're speaking to it personally and recognizing that it's not a matter of or, it's the matter of and the love of family and what you and your mother were having your own correlating paths of healing. You talk about this in the book of, and I've seen some of these beautiful cards, how she made these through creation healing, right? The artistic capabilities your mother was gifted with to make these really personalized birthday cards for you every year. Her poems, her writing and sharing that with you, the conversations that you had. And this is where your book really turns the key and opens a new door for those who might be seeking, like, how do I heal? Is there just one way or are there many ways? And you really just spoke to that. There's multiple ways for a person to go through their healing journey to survive trauma and not allow the trauma to define them because it's contained within their life experience, but to help them see new pathways. And so I really was inspired by just not only what you just said, but also it tapped into what I read in the book. So I want to come to this next question that's a little more personalized and ask you to talk about the audience because let's face it, some of our audience and listeners don't know this, but you were born in St. Louis, Missouri, if my memory serves me correctly. You and I both grew up in the city of Waterloo, Iowa, a wonderful small city in Northeast Iowa with a lot of great people that we still love dearly, that are family, or who are our family, excuse me, that live there and that we recognize as
Family
a
and
home
friends.
city. Yeah, and lots of great friends, a lot of classmates that we still have that live in that city. And so, what would you say to that audience specifically in Waterloo, Iowa, right? What would you say to that audience as many of them know you, get the opportunity to read your book, and there's children, there you have nieces and nephews and cousins and family there. What do you hope that they gain from the book?
When I was a kid living in Waterloo, um, there was a point where my great grandparents died. Um, when they died, it was kind of a shift there. I was like 9, 10. I think at the time I went to a school called McKinstry, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, the For me, I was put in a situation of living with my grandmother. My grandmother was more my great grandparents, not my granddaddy. He's it's an amazing man, but he wasn't soft necessarily. Not that Madeira was soft, but I wasn't laying on his lap like Madeira would allow me to. And then I went to my grandmother's house, and she wasn't doing nothing like that. She was basically giving me like what the hip hop version of a Bible did, basic instructions before leaving Earth, Bible. And I needed that. I didn't even know it. I needed those instructions because I was the young son of no one. It's just my great grandparents delayed the realization. I didn't
Mm.
know really what the truth was, is that I had to stand on my own 2 feet. The stuff that I realized as a child, everybody else realizes just later. So we get it, just like
Mm.
Maslow's thing. We can say that self-actualization is the top. Some people just go to that first and do
Mm.
all the other needs after the fact. But for me, it was a town like that allowed me to really see myself.
Mhm.
During that period of time, I was I went through a lot. I experienced a lot, and nobody knew. It was great
Mhm.
that they didn't know. In the book, I think I talk about a gentleman, a kid at the time, who told me on a bus trip that he was crying because he said that his grandmother was in prison,
Mm.
and how bad he felt. He was so emotional about this, and I sat next to him. I could see it today, and I told him, "My mom is in prison." And he looked at me and said, "You're lying. That's not possible."
Mhm.
And I said, "No, like she really is." In fact, well, yeah, I'll go into that, but and he says, "But you seem so normal." And it was the nicest thing anyone ever said to me, that I was normal, because you have no idea. It's a quiet riot. There's things going on. I was happy, jovial, but that again was through the prayers of ancestors. That again was because of the design. But I didn't tell y'all that my first helicopter was seen landing in a town in an area called Loganville, as the feds jumped out to go and find my mother. You know how that feels? And for me to be in my bedroom, as I said in the book, and I was fighting with Spider-Man and the Justice Friends or whatever it is, and they're in a battle. And the next thing you know, I had a whole force field in my mind as I was playing with my toys, and my door was kicked open as my mother ran through and tried to escape through the window. And then I saw the men in black literally come, slam her down, hog tie her, take her out the house, and put her in the helicopter and take her away. It's my first helicopter I've ever seen. It's probably like 7 or 8. You know what I mean? And again, this is not an oh, woe is me, because I had to deal with it. So Waterloo let me face it, but it also gave me time to heal. Everybody doesn't know your struggle. This is why it's so important for me not to publicize your fears, not to tell everybody your struggle until you're ready. Eventually, you will have to, because you have to shine a light on them so they can't secretly jab you, because they tried to. People feel bad about the secrets. That's how the evils get to you. Jay-Z said, "Evil's beating me down, boo, telling lies that sound true." I know it's not true. But living in Waterloo is being a kid like me, or like how we were. It allowed me time to cultivate my own creativity. If I lived in New York, it probably already been on Yo MTV Raps and all of these other things, because that's what it allows for, especially if you're a skilled person. But Waterloo is different. It was a place where you had dreams. I think I wrote one time, I said, "This little town I dwell in will constantly hell winds. I tell friends to jump over holes that other souls fell in." Both fell in and fell in. Lived in a town where some of my friends were selling crack. What other options did they have? This was intentional. This is something that they did in order to take them to another level. A friend that I would write with later and create things with is a guy, Eric Amadio, did a show called Snowfall, which is a great show. It was on FX. And we would have these same conversations and building this about how the CIA and all of these other things, conspiracy theories that happen. Some of them are real, not really theories, but I'm not really that type of a person. But I'm the type of person to realize what's happening, and how at tables when I was a kid, one of my friends who was a great athlete who lived with his grandmother because he couldn't live with his mother, I found similarities to this young man who was a very popular kid, but he was selling drugs, doing well, but people were talking about him. I didn't see any adult talk helping him out. All I saw were adults gossiping about him. So for kids from this town, they need to understand. And from towns similar, they need to understand all of the possibilities. They need to see you. and understand what that is. A person who wasn't necessarily focused on this path that you are now. I'm not talking about as a kid, I'm talking about a few years ago. I'm talking about a person who's able to self-actualize so much that they can completely switch, pivot, a very important word, their life to do something else. There are blessings and lessons. There are blessings in the lessons. How can a man decide to do something else? It's not like you started off wanting to be a psychotherapist. What happened with you in order to give you inspiration where you have the audacity, Barack, of hope, where you can switch up your whole path after you've been in the financial industry? Wait, but before you became in the financial industry, you were a serious MC. But wait, you were a serious MC, so then you utilize some of those same skill sets in order to help you in your financial world to become heads of companies, of banks, to become a mentor and to be revered. It's not about you. You're an example, and you got to do it because Father Time is literally, I hear him. His shoes are squeaky. You understand what I'm saying? You need some new
Yeah.
ones. These are no, these are new ones. These are the brand new tread, like when you're on the court and you click, click, click,
Mm.
whatever that is. Yes, I hear him. He is alley-ooping. He is dunking. I see it for others. I have a great friend. We both have a great friend in Waterloo named Heath Moore, who's no longer with us.
Yeah.
He's like a
God rest his
champion.
soul. God rest his
God
soul.
rest the brother's soul. I spoke of him on my audiobook directly because he was a person who still had hope for hip hop. You know how amazing that is? Like another friend of ours, CeeLo, Jamal Campbell, people like this who still have hope, who are still doing music, our nieces, our families, our friends who still have dreams, people who came from Waterloo who've written great books, who've impacted the world. What are you talking about? You live in a place where you can do anything. You are a gem. I ain't talking about the ones that you rock around your neck. You people are a gem. You have the ability to impact people that you've never seen. Out of billions, there's us. So why would you trip on wherever you're from? But it is
Yeah.
time for you to self-actualize.
Yeah.
It is time for you to realize your greatness and share this message with these children and with your inner child. Because it ain't over until it's over.
Such an uplifting message. And I know that will be greatly appreciated by many. Beyond Waterloo, Iowa is one city. There, like you said, there's many cities out there that are beacons or places of hope that just with the right elements of connecting, seeing someone who represents what's possible, like yourself and what you've accomplished, reading a book like the one you've written that opens minds to more opportunities, a mindful principle of beginner's mind, to see things as if you're seeing it for the very first time. And like you said, recognizing that Father Time, even as you're early in your life stages and you're feeling off track, you can get back on track, and that don't lose the opportunity to take advantage of every moment in time that you have, which is a really salient point that I think you've made very well here. So I want to end with the last question is that obviously I'm a big biased, but objective at the same time advocate of this amazing book. It's about over 300 pages. And for everyone who has the opportunity today, as soon as you can, when you have the resources, the book is Who Do I Belong To? Writing a book with my mom from beyond by Tarvala Razi. It includes the poetry of Sandra Martin Ross, his mother, God rest her soul, writing from the beyond, and it's full of visualizations of photographs and graphics that really add to the element of the book. The soundtrack's pretty powerful. Tarvella, would you take a moment and just kind of go over how people can get the book, where they should go to get the book, the soundtrack, any place or media that they can find out more about the book and learn more about the work that you're doing, and even contact you for book signings or events, speaking events, because I know you got a lot of that already on the docket. And so your schedule is going to be pretty busy, but I think it'd be helpful as we take the last few minutes to have you speak to how people can get access to the book and to you.
Thank you, first of all, for reading the book. Thank you for allowing me on your platform. I appreciate it. You're doing a great job. You are inspired and inspirational, is what I call blessed to be a
Thank you.
blessing. Again, the point of this book is to grow through what you go through. That is
Mm,
very important. It's a message that I push. You can find uh, these things on my website, which is Razi, R-A-Z-I
mm,
creates.com. The book you can find there as well. You can probably get it even faster if you go to Amazon because they make all the money and they don't give it to you faster than me. But on
mm,
Amazon, you can look for Who Do I Belong To? We have an amazing audiobook. The audiobook I'm
mm.
extremely enthused about. It's myself. My brother JB does the foreword. He wrote the foreword for the book. Again, we are very appreciative of that. It was excellent.
It's
My
an honor.
friend Eddie Gypsy Stokes begins it. A great friend of mine, Ursula Yancey. She's a great writer. She writes for Rihanna, J Lo, all of these different people. She wrote Rihanna's Skin, Music Soul Child, everybody. It's a lot of creative people who've been a part of it, and we've actually been. People are speaking to us about doing a play about it, especially because Ursula did the poems. She did excellent.
Mm,
You have to hear it. It's amazing. It's like a movie. She outdid me. I appreciate that. She
mm,
shined, and she really was the first person who brought my mother's poems to life. Because
mm,
this is just her book in her words, how she meant it, the poems that helped her self-actualize, as she stated in her book, her own words. I am finally me, and I'll never lose self again. So you're able to receive that through Amazon. Or go to Razi Creates because RaziCreates.com because we're going to continue to upload material. We're
mhm,
striving to build a community. I'm not going to leave you by yourself because the thing is, people now start getting therapy, but what happens after that?
mhm,
We need to build more community and work with
mhm,
one another in order to truly heal. Um, that's very important. And you can receive the book from that perspective. I'll be doing speaking engagements. You can bring me out to sign books, whatever.
mhm,
My ultimate goal is that. My ultimate goal is to connect with people and to continue to connect. For this, God has told me, and I mean this from a real perspective, but not a whatever perspective like a lot of people do. I feel compelled to grow through what I go through and unselfishly show you scars that I may not necessarily be ready to reveal. Um, I'm not an oh woe is me type of a person. On paper, it's crazy, but in real life, that's not my life. I appreciate being able to grow and to heal and to be steadfast on this journey because it's just a journey. But I also want y'all to tell y'all stories too. This book is the story continues book, so it's a living book. So my motivation is for people to add on to it so we can continue to tell these stories throughout time. And others will also be impacted by it. And we don't have to know each other to love each other. We don't. We live in a physical and a spiritual world simultaneously, as I said before. Our spirits may have already connected. Our spirits don't need GPS, don't even need Waze or whatever it is. We connect effortlessly. But our physicals, we have to heal them. We have to stay healthy. We have to do whatever we can, and it starts with our mind. So I hope that people read the book. But more importantly, I hope that people love for real. Like I start love starts with yourself. I'm not worried about all of this stuff with book stuff. I know I should be. I'm not really a promotional person from that perspective. The point is to connect. The point is to have navigational skills and abilities to get to this next level and to be able to pivot from wherever you're at and to find happiness with it.
Wonderful. So as we wrap up, Tarvella, I want to thank you for giving me the gift of having one of the first opportunities to interview you, which will be one of many to come. So thank you for letting me kind of crash your schedule for that. And I wanted to say as we wrap up as well, I really invite others to get access to this book, read it. I know Tarvella very well. I've known him most of his life and my life, and he is not one who is looking for any kind of gain out of this other than what he said, grow as he goes and help others and connect and create community. I just have to say that, just speaking from personally and from a professional clinical position, that this is a really incredibly well written book that I think opens many doors for those to come. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining and listening in. I invite you to subscribe to this podcast on your chosen platform, MindSoft, on YouTube channel as well. Stay updated for upcoming episodes. And please share this with others you believe who could benefit from this information. With that, be mindful and choose joy. Thank you.
Peace.